Good evening, everybody. We are back in full force here for 2023 with the Warren Foundation and the show, The Warren Files. I'm going to start out, I guess, with a quick question. First of all, thanks everybody for being here. I see a lot of people jumped on really quick, so we've got 33 already.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Speaking of New Year, have you guys made any paranormal resolutions for 2023? What do you guys have on the slate?
No resolutions. I mean, I've never been one for resolutions. I think it's kind of taboo. Not even taboo. It's just one of those things that, you just do the best that you can and you set your goals. And I don't think you specifically need a new year to do that. But
what are your goals? Are you setting any paranormal goals for 2023?
So right now, it seems like I have a couple of things in the works, possibly the Hinsdale House, and I'm going to be doing a paranormal event for veterans for Homeless Veterans Association in Massachusetts, in Salem, Massachusetts, in July, and potentially be going out to Columbia in March. But we'll see what happens. I've got some medical things in the works, and that's all going to determine my paranormal wish list, so to speak, or resolutions.
What do you got going on, Stephanie, in 2023?
Not a whole lot, just what we're doing in the foundation and helping out, clients here at home.
Yep. I'm kind of in that boat too. I think I don't want to call it a resolution, but I've made a goal in 2023. I really think we need to educate a lot more. 2022 really made it clear to me that there's a lot of bad info out there. So I think 2023 we really need to educate a lot more, and that's something that I want to try and make it happen. So, Layla, what do you got going on in 2023?
I don't have much going on either. I'm with Father Kenneth. I don't really do the whole resolutions thing.
Yep.
It's kind of really want to get into the foundation and getting our name out there and help more people.
Yep. And last but not least, Chris, what do you got going on in 2023?
I don't make resolutions, but I certainly have goals. And my number one goal is to get us out there more so people know where to find help. Yeah. It's funny, we have an audience, but we don't seem to reach the people who need us the most, and that's who we really need to be reaching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and that's one thing too. With we just did the Warren Files live in Spanish.
Yeah,
and we had about 767 views and about 17 shares. I think 767 views so far.
Awesome. Cool.
For the Spanish. So we're good. So with the Spanish section, at least my goal for the foundation is to promote the Spanish subdivision out there. There was a really big need for information, and it showed throughout the questions during that live. A lot of misinformation out there, and a lot of people that were so happy that the foundation is actually doing something live. So we've got something planned for our team in Spain next month, and little by little throughout the year, we're going to mirror what the English side is doing. And so, but I'm excited for that, and I do think that with us promoting ourselves more on the Spanish side, either way, it's going to be good regardless. Yeah. I mean, I think the foundation is a blessing, and we can definitely be touching more people, reaching more people, so to speak. Sorry.
I think another thing that, would be cool if we did it would be to maybe do, because obviously we have a lot of European things going on as well, and to maybe do something, to do a Warren Files episode that's more their prime time, because, man, if they're going to watch us in Europe, they are. It's at least 1 a.m.
Oh, I
Yeah.
agree. I
That's the
agree.
same thing with the Spain.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think.
Well,
I
that's
think
one of that's
Spanish language Warren Files episodes, which are monthly now,
Yeah.
should be a little earlier so that we can reach them.
Yeah. So for
What do you think,
Spain,
Father Ken?
it looks like for Spain, we're probably going to be doing it at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock my time because they're 9 hours ahead. But for like Central America, Latin America, 4 p.m. seems ideal because we have many professionals that are still working. For example, I do want to get Dr. Patricia. She's a pathologist and she's also a medium, and so I want to get her on the shows as well and expose the audience to what it means to be an actual medical practitioner, but to be involved in this field, the ethics, what goes behind it, the thought analysis, the comparison, some of those things. And we've got some engineers, we've got some wonderful people who build equipment, potentially building some equipment for the foundation itself. So I'm excited to see where this goes. Going back to the original earlier broadcast.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah.
That all sounds great. Again, I want to welcome everybody for joining us, and I'm gonna. So tonight's topic is going to be. This seems to be a common thing in a lot of the cases that we get. Like, what happens if I've already screwed up? Like, let's say, I got a Ouija board sitting on the shelf that I found, from grandma's house or whatever, and I brought it home, and I'm like, I'm curious about this, and don't know anything about it, and decide to play around with it, and actually summon something or have something bad happen. So, tonight we're going to talk about what to do if something like that happens. Or, we've had a case or two, actually probably more, where people have gotten involved in witchcraft, and I'm not talking about the good side of it. I'm talking about like the darker stuff. And they get in there, they find these rituals and spells online, and they go ahead and do them, and they open the doors to stuff, and they don't have any clue what they're doing.
If I can address something here right off the bat, for me, the thing that's important is not to rush to conclusions. As investigators, as researchers especially, when you talk to somebody who says that, their house is haunted or what have you, and they say, a demon is after me, don't rush to diagnose the problem immediately. Gather your information, figure it out, because the greatest way to screw up is by jumping to conclusions before you have all the information you need. We will always make mistakes. We will always have to go back and figure things out again when we get new information. That's the nature of what you do. We're dealing with very complicated stuff here. This is not simple. It's not, it's a ghost, so here's what you do. No, it's a ghost, so it has free will. It's a person just like you, and we have to figure out how to deal with that person.
Chris, I was just going to add this. Your grandparents were big into, don't touch a Ouija board.
Oh,
what are your thoughts? Yeah, because there's a quote with your grandma. She's talking about, she said, I don't know, things conjure, or people conjure things and this and that, but the Ouija board is the worst. Is that your?
She said about 70% of their cases came from Ouija boards. Yeah. And I don't agree that that's the case any longer, but that's probably because people have learned all sorts of other ways of trying to contact spirits. And it isn't the object itself that's the problem. It's not the Ouija board that's the problem. The problem is your intention to make contact. And if you're somebody with a more a darker side to you, who's got underlying issues, then you might attract something dark. So there are people who use Ouija boards and never have problems, and there are many more people who never ever contact anything. But it's Russian roulette, and it is incredibly dangerous.
Right.
And the clarifier.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, if you're an investigator and you bring something home with you, which does happen, I've had it happen to me several times. There are ways to get rid of it, and I'd like to ask the panel, what would you suggest if you've gone home and now there's something banging on your door and trying and knocking things over in the kitchen and, making the lights dim in the house. What do you do?
Ladies first.
I mean, it just depends on the level of the severity of it. But, most of those that come home, it's not something trying to harm you. It's just something that, maybe they liked who you were and they come home with you. So you just need to be, with us, because we know what we're doing. You need to have your limits, set your limits. So you're not allowed here. We all have our forms of protection that we do. So, I have Christian faith. So we have the white light of protection, all that kind of stuff. But just, you have to be firm with your boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I agree with Layla completely. I use the white light method. I love my dragon's blood sage. And the most important thing is just telling them to leave, meaning it, because the most of the time they will listen to you and just leave. It's not usually something negative. It's just something that wants to communicate.
No, I agree. First and foremost, for me, it would be, don't be afraid. Don't show any fear. That's one of the biggest things, because energy is attracted to your energy. So if you are showing fear, even if it's a human spirit and they just want to mess with you, they know that you're afraid. They can sense it. So they're more than likely to, start making more of a ruckus. So for me, it's always important, before I go to an investigation, I pray for my team. I bless us with salt and holy water. I even do Florida water. When I come back home, I make a prayer of protection for my team and I. I seal the door before I go inside the house. And then I take off my clothes, I wash them, and then I say a meditative prayer. But if there's things that are banging, just like both ladies in the panel say, hey, you're not welcomed here. You don't belong here. Just please go away. And you do it in a respectful manner as well. You don't want to be aggressive. You don't want to be, violent, so to speak. You don't want to provoke it, because, as we mentioned before, most of the time it's a human spirit that may be attracted to you, and you don't want to hurt its feelings. You want to treat it with respect. Maybe it came home with you because there was a connection. It saw the way that you work. It saw the light that you have. It saw the love that you have, the compassion. And energy is attracted to energy. Light attracts light.
One of the things I've learned over the last couple of years with the some of the psychics and the foundation and stuff like that is that I always thought in a lot of paranormal people I know go with this method, but like sage is like the miracle, the cure for everything, which
It doesn't
it's not.
last. It doesn't. It's just like in the moment, make you feel strong, kind of thing. Take control.
Yep. Yeah. Us paranormal people, we love that sage.
Yeah,
But,
it ionizes the energy in the room. It lifts it, but it only lasts for about 2.5 or 3 hours. You have to include a ritual to set those boundaries, which is what many of the people are saying online.
Yeah.
Set firm boundaries. And I agree with Ken. Be respectful, but I've dealt with dark things that have tried to intimidate me, and I'm not so respectful then.
Well, that's a different story, brother. I didn't want to bring in that word because we've had that conversation before.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I've had things that have tried to intimidate me, of course. And for instance, I put out a prayer request about 4 or 5 years ago for a family that was under attack in England. And as the prayers were coming from all over the world for this family, all of a sudden things are happening in my house. And the woman from the family I was helping was like, no, can you ask them to stop praying? Because I don't want you to get hurt. I'm like, no, that's fine. This kind of thing happens all the time. Don't worry about it. I had a friend in the house with me at the time, and she said, it's getting dark in here. You're going down the hallway? I said, yeah, I've got to use the bathroom. I'm not going to worry about it. I just ignored it. I didn't give it any energy. I didn't give it any fear. I said, you will cut this out. By the power of Jesus Christ, you will stop this now. Because it's not your power that matters. Right. Yep. Yes, you can set firm boundaries. And if it's a human spirit, you can set boundaries that with mediums and so forth. if they don't set boundaries, spirits will come at them any hour of the day that they want. But you can, as a medium, work with them and say, look, I'm available from this time to this time when I'm in this place. Otherwise, you do not come to me.
Mhm.
So that's an important thing.
A couple of the psychics in the foundation have taught me a lesson, over the last year or so, is that like, and it relates to this comment here, is that like when you're dealing with a human spirit, you can't kick it out with sage and this and that and the other thing. Sometimes you have to break down to negotiations,
Mhm.
because I've had a couple clients that have had human spirits in their house and they have free will. They're sage is not going to make them leave, so you have to sometimes negotiate with them, or try and figure out what the hell they're doing there. What do they want? And you're dealing with a different animal than energy.
Absolutely.
So that's why
I mean, they could be there trying to help you.
Yep.
It could be your husband who died, and now you're mixed. I'm actually going to an actual case here, and you're mixed up with a guy that's kind of dangerous. He's been violent to you, and your husband is trying to get through to you and say, you got to get away from him before he kills you. You know? So I know from past experiences that just because you've got something going on in your house, it doesn't mean it's a bad thing that's happening.
Yeah.
And I think it's all a mental state of mind as well as the state of mind that you're in. I mean, as Jeff mentioned, human spirits, they're on a different vibrational wave. There was a case, it's closed out, but I've spoken about this before, about a woman whose husband passed away. And he was just taunting her and bothering her, trying to communicate with her, trying to get closure. But what ended up happening and resulting is that he wasn't the best man while he was alive. He was abusive. He did some other things. He was unfaithful. And so she was hurt. Although she was sad that he passed, she wasn't ready to forgive him. And so that's what he's looking for. And I told her, until you are ready to forgive him and let it go, he's probably not going to want to cross over, because that's what he's looking for. He's looking for that closure. And until this day, she has made amends and the activity has subsided.
And I think it's also important for people to know that in our field, a lot of the people have abilities, whether you're aware of it or not, but that's a beacon of light to the spirit. So they're going to naturally be attracted to that. So, you need to learn to, if you do have that ability, you need to learn how to control that as well.
Yeah. I try to teach people that when things are happening, like many people who are empaths will contact us and say, I've been chased and haunted my whole life. It's like, no. It turns out you're an empath. Your aura burns more brightly. So you're attracting spirits again and again and again. You're a lighthouse in the darkness where most people are just dim candles.
Yeah.
And so they're going to be drawn to you like moths to a flame. It's not that you're haunted per se by, some one spirit that keeps coming after you. It's simply that wherever you go, there are always going to be spirits around you, and they're going to see you in the darkness.
And that's why it's important, which you mentioned earlier, we just can't jump to conclusions. That's where education comes in place. That's when we have to do a thorough analysis and investigation. We take everything into consideration, your background, your history, because chances are you are displaying psychic abilities that are uncontrollable, and you are confusing it for what could be considered a haunting.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Oh, I'm sorry, Stephanie, go ahead.
That's okay. I was just going to say, another thing I've noticed is you manifest energy themselves. And when they're upset, it may get out of control, and they automatically assume that it's something negative attacking them, when it's really just, a lot of the time they need mental health assistance. They need to be cared for by a professional, and it does help out a lot.
One of my mentors actually tells a story to a lot of clients. He says, like, let's say you have Okay, so like, let's say you have a kid in your house and it gets slapped in the face and runs down the stairs and says, "Mom, I just got hit in the face by something that's not there," and the mom is going to be like, "Let's call a priest right now. It's bad." Well, what if it's just a child spirit? In the kid that lives in the house picked up his favorite toy. I mean, that's what kids do. So a lot of people, just assume that like a slap or something like that, it's aggressive and evil, but it could just be kids like, "Hey, man, you took my toy, so I'm gonna hit
It's
you."
it's funny you mentioned that, Jeff, because that was my very first case in the foundation. It was a case here in Sacramento where there was a 4-year-old girl who was complaining that there was a little boy talking to her and was bothering her. And so, the family, obviously, they were afraid. They were seeing shadow figures. We did an extensive research on the property. We found out that, there was a death on the property years ago, but we didn't think it was that. So the more we started getting information, uh, we found it's like we struck a gold mine. The grandfather had said that when they had moved there, where their steel shed was, there was a little burial site with toy trucks and baseballs and something that belonged to a little boy who had passed, not on that property, but on that land. And so when they threw away those toys, allegedly that's when the activity started happening. And when the little girl was going outside to play on the swing, she would see this little boy and she would be frightened. And so what we did is we did a blessing, we did a prayer for the house. We were really respectful. And what we did as a team is with our intentions, we went out to the dollar store. We bought some toy trucks, a baseball. We put it back in the area where it was located, and we put some candy there. And we said some beautiful things to the kid. Hey, we're sorry. We didn't mean to bother you. Here are your toys. We just want you to be happy, but please leave the little girl alone. And after that happened, all of our equipment didn't get any hits. A few weeks goes by, no activity happened. The family was happy, and so you know who knows. But I do think with that child energy, by doing that with the intention, that's what he wanted. His toys were missing. He was alone. So. And so I think eventually what ended up happening too is we did ask the little boy to cross over if he could. I do felt that potentially he did cross over, but before that, he just wanted his toys, and so we gave him what he wanted.
That's why.
Before I give one that's similar, Sean Murphy's asking, will these videos be archived for future viewing?
Yeah.
All of our videos are available to you on the Warren Files YouTube channel. That's the Warren Files. So just go there, and right now we got about 100 videos on there for you.
Yep. Another question. Let's rein it back into this same topic here. So we've talked about Ouija boards a little bit and how that can open things up. And do you guys all feel? I personally feel that doing like an EVP session with a digital recorder is basically the same thing. You're
Yes,
trying
I
to
agree.
contact the dead and get
I
them
agree.
to respond. And so you guys all agree
Yeah.
that that's
Yeah.
I mean,
Oddly,
it's
my grandfather took me to a cemetery. My grandfather took me to a cemetery when I was 17 years old and did an EVP session there with me. And it was honestly the last one I've ever done.
oh really?
Yeah, I know. It surprised me. He didn't equate that with a seance.
Yeah.
But, the thing is, people want to think that the stuff that my grandparents say online is who they were when they finished their careers. And okay, obviously not. You can go back to stuff I posted 5-6 years ago, and my views have changed because I have learned new things. My grandparents did the same thing. They adapted, they changed over time. So if you saw some of their lectures in the 70s or the 80s, you don't really know what my grandparents believed. They changed over time.
And that comes with experience, and that comes with extensive case analysis. That comes with comparing notes. I mean, we all change. It's an evolution. EVP is a form of spirit communication, and I do think that it's all about the intent. Which is why protection and grounding is one of the most important things that you always have to do, even in everyday life. When you wake up, you may not be dealing with the paranormal, so to speak, but when you wake up in the morning, you say a protection or a blessing for you and your family to protect yourself against all those energies. And I'm going to say this too. there's a misconception that just because you're grounded and you're protected, that you're not that nothing's going to happen to you. That's not necessarily true.
You
There's
have
been
free
times
will.
when
You can
even
give up your protection.
yeah, yeah, things can happen to you even while you're grounded and you're protected. So I don't want people to confuse this for thinking, oh, if I'm protected to ground myself, nothing will ever happen to me. That's not true. That's not the case.
What
And
do you?
just like you have to invite evil in, or evil has to
Mhm.
be invited in by somebody,
Yeah,
so does good. So
yeah,
it's a matter of free will. It's your free will.
yeah.
And that's why those psychic boundaries you put up are so important as well. I tell everybody to use the white light every morning and every night when they're in bed at their most relaxed. You're calling on God in whatever form you think of God. It doesn't really matter. Calling on God to surround you, protect you, and to be a part of you, so that you are safe. But how
Yeah.
you act throughout the day determines if God stays protecting you or not. If you give up that protection, that's your choice, and God will always honor your free will.
Yeah.
One thing too. Let's again keeping in line with the topic. So one of your grandparents' famous cases was obviously the Conjuring House. Um, you know, isn't that the one where they did a seance,
Honestly, I don't know. It
or
was
was that
not one of the
Amityville?
cases that my grandparents ever talked about. That was from the
Okay,
1960s, and
right.
it was before they really were famous at all.
But your grandparents used seances as a tool occasionally, didn't
They
they?
used them in the Amityville.
What do you guys
The
think about? What do everybody on the panel? What do you guys all think about seances? Does that invite things that can necessarily be like, oh crap, I screwed up? I because personally, my personal belief is that like, especially these people that channel people, like your grandmother did. Actually, I forget the name of it, but like where you invite them to speak through you. That
Well,
scares
she
the
didn't do
crap
that.
out
She was a light trance medium.
of me. Okay, because that scares the crap out of me. Like inviting something.
Stephanie, do you want to answer? I feel like we keep talking over you.
Yeah.
Stephanie, did you want to answer? I feel like we've been talking over you
Oh,
before.
I was just gonna say, I think that any equipment, anytime you open up communication, you're putting yourself at risk. If you don't know how to send them away, you shouldn't play with it.
Yeah.
I'm not so big on seances. I tell people that if you are going to perceive that route of spirit communication, make sure that you have someone reputable with you, someone that knows what they're doing, someone that's got extensive experience doing the channeling for you. Because if you do it by yourself and you don't know what you're doing, you are more than prone to maybe invite something that you don't want. And going back to the original topic, mental state, your mental state is everything. I received a message a few days ago from a fellow friend who's a police officer who suffered a loss and wanted to know if there's a potential way that I can hook him up with a psychic. And I go, no. I go, you are grieving right now. I am not going to connect you to a psychic. I do not recommend you communicating with anybody that has, one, just recently crossed over, and two, in your mental state of mind, depression and anxiety. I go, that is not a good, that is not good, in my opinion, because you're in a volatile state of mind. And I go, and I certainly wouldn't try to attempt to communicate with that spirit, especially if you're not a psychic or medium or just your mental state of mind.
What do you think, Layla?
I mean, I think to compound on what Father Kenneth just said, I mean, that's on any investigation or helping clients. If you're not in the right state of mind, your defenses are going to be lowered, and you're going to be more vulnerable to anything that's going to come. I mean, that's anything bad going on in your life, had a divorce, a death, anything. You just have to be extra cautious.
You know, Jeff, you're asking about seances in particular. For me,
Yep.
it doesn't matter if it's a seance, EVP, automatic writing. It's all about that intention to open yourself up to a spirit. I know religions that allow spirits to take over the believers for a certain amount of time, but there are boundaries there. They set boundaries. Before the spirit is allowed to come in, there are boundaries set, and that's what a good medium does, is set boundaries. So for me, although I don't do seances, I do other things that may be very similar. to speak to a spirit, to help a spirit, like, you know, using the spirit box or what have you. For me, it's a slippery slope, and if you don't know what you're doing, you can unintentionally invite something into your life that you really don't want to invite into your life. So this is not a hobby that somebody should take up. This is something you should be learning from professionals so that you do it right. It's like you wouldn't want to practice psychoanalysis as a hobby or surgery as a hobby. You know, you need to learn how to do it properly because you can cause great harm.
Yeah.
I agree.
Listen
So again-
to your intuition, listen to your gut. If something doesn't feel right, then just stop what you're doing.
So
Simple as that.
again,
If you don't feel it,
And check your ego.
Yeah.
Check your ego, because God knows the moment you let that guide you, the moment you believe yourself to be infallible, you will screw up.
So
You're going to get knocked down on your ass.
Yeah.
So Ken,
Spiritually.
going back to what you said about, you know, like a lot of people, and that is a common thing. Like if people have a loved one pass away, they want to try and communicate, you know, fairly quickly and stuff like that. So let's say somebody has already done that and screwed up and they brought something out that they didn't want. What do we do then?
well, that's, you know, when we tell them, hey, you know what, we're here to help you out. We're not here to cast judgment. We're here to love you and help you, and we'll proceed from there. You know, just because you messed up, it doesn't mean that that's the end of it. You know, we
Right.
will do our very best to help you out. You know, we'll start from the beginning, process of elimination. You know, we'll help you set boundaries. We'll help you empower yourself. We'll help you with the help that you need. So even if you know you've done that, but you're still dealing with a deep psychological illness, you know, we'll get you taken care of. We'll point you to the right resources. You know, I believe in mind, body, and spirit. I believe that if your mind and your body are intact and they're 100%, then your soul is fine. And I think it's important for the public to realize that we could go ahead and help you out and give you the tools that you need, but it's not a one all be all. You have to still put in your part and you have to believe in what you're doing. Also, it's not anything just to say, well, God protect me and that's it, or I sage myself and that's it. There's no intention behind that. You have to make sure that you have the proper intention. You know, that's the most important thing. It's like a blanket. It's like a false sense of hope, going out there and
You
saying,
know,
well, you know what, I protected myself with the white light with no intention. Here we go.
not only that, be careful, because there's an old joke, which I'm going to quickly try to tell, about a man on a rooftop with the floodwaters getting higher, and he's praying to God for help. And all of a sudden, a canoe comes by and says, "Here, hop in, I'll save you." And he says, "No, no, God's going to save me. Don't worry about me." And then a helicopter comes and says, "Hurry, climb up the ladder. You're going to die." He says, "No, no, God's going to save me. I have faith." And of course, he drowns. And he ends up in heaven, and he says, "God, why didn't you save me?" He says, "I sent you a canoe and I sent you a helicopter. What more did you want?"
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I said that in the last Warren Files, and I've said that before too. That's, you know, people misunderstand the way things work. You know, you still have to put in your part. Sometimes the help that you're getting is not going to come in that supernatural factor. Some of it it's just plain and simple common sense, like it's right there in front of you the whole time. There isn't this veil that you have to pull apart, and you don't have to do a 10-hour rain dance. Sometimes the solution is as simple as accept the help. There you go.
Mhm.
That's how this works.
Well,
God
use the
helps
tools
those
we
who
give
help
you.
themselves.
Yeah, if we
What was
give
that,
you
Chris?
tools, if we give you tools to work with, use those tools. Use the protection prayers. Use whatever we tell you. Don't if you're not doing your part, like you said, it's not going to work. We can only
Right.
do so
Don't
much.
don't tell us. Well, I've already done that with the other 5 other teams and it hasn't worked. Well, because you're doing it wrong. Because we know these things to be a fact, factual to help out in some sort of way. You know, so you're doing something wrong. You know, and that's where we come in and say, okay, so what are you doing? How are you doing this? How are you lining up this ritual? What's your blessing like? What's your everyday life? You know, are you waking up in the morning? Are you saying positive affirmations? You know, do you have bright light in your room? Are you cleaning your house? Are you washing the dishes? Are you feeling refreshed? You know, all of the physical factors have an impact as well, I believe, on this supernatural spiritual realm.
And you have to have your faith. I mean, it doesn't necessarily Christian, whatever your faith is, you have to have that. You have to keep strong in that.
I think another thing that's really important is going to the right person for help. We get a lot of cases where they've had 10 plus teams come in and make things worse. It's really important to do research on who you call on and not bring just anybody in.
Yeah, I think that's actually a separate show. Is advice to people that they should be doing background checks on us, and we should be doing it on the clients as well, because a lot of times clients can be toxic as well.
No, certain case in certain case in particular, Layla and Stephanie know about it. It's an ongoing case, and so it has its roadblocks so far.
Yes.
There's an interesting question going on about Reiki in the discussion here. I think we should do a program on Reiki coming up soon. We've got some wonderful Reiki masters in the foundation, and I think we should invite them to join us and explain what that is. I know that Reiki is now used in many hospitals in the United States. It is recognized as being effective.
Actually,
some forms of Reiki. I was going to say some forms of Reiki are actually being taught to the Vatican, to priests about Reiki and the channeling.
There's actually science now that backs up. I did a lecture at a college a couple years ago, and I found an article about how they can actually measure the effects of Reiki through your energy and we've all got our EMF meters and this and that and the other thing, but those are not near sensitive enough to detect actual human energy. But they've got equipment out there now that can detect it, and it does affect it. Reiki does affect the human.
I will say one thing about Reiki. I think it's a beautiful tool. I think it's a beautiful belief system. I think it's wonderful. But as with Reiki and going to psychic mediums, make sure you go to someone reputable. Remember, Chris, 2 years ago, the possession case. The young girl.
Yeah.
She went
but
to the Reiki
also
master.
That was the client's problem. She was a very dark person. Mm-hmm. And when the energy was opened up in her, it unleashed something very dark inside of her.
Yeah, I mean, she was messing with her
willing to change. She wanted
was messing with
without doing the work.
Instant gratification. She was having sex on graves. She was doing illicit drugs. She was doing certain satanic dark rituals. Not only that, as a tattoo artist, her work was darker in nature. And we saw the results of that. And so we think the culmination was the Reiki master was there to help her out and do the very best that she could. But what ended up happening is because of that client's darker spirit, something opened up and she came under full possession.
Jeff, if we don't have anything planned for the next program, why don't we do it on Reiki and invite Tammy, Christine on, and also Kalunya Howie Traveler. They're both Reiki masters.
Yeah, definitely send me so we do have some topics coming up. Actually, Stephanie and I were talking about this before the show tonight. I think the next topic that we're going to do is going to be on witchcraft, because there's such a negative connotation to witchcraft that, I think we have a lot of witches in the foundation that would like to plead their case. So
perhaps we can get one from New Zealand and one from England to join us as well.
Yes.
And maybe one from Florida.
Yes, absolutely. Well, pagan anyway.
Yeah. So we can do a Reiki show too, because a lot of our topics that are on our list, I do feel are a bit redundant. So actually one of our best shows recently has been the one that we did on reincarnation. I've had so many people say that they love that show, and it was, and it was different than what we normally talk about. So Reiki is absolutely a topic that I never ever hear anybody talk about on the show. And in defense of witchcraft too, that's another one that I just don't.
Yeah, and that one's important to me because even my grandfather in particular, early on in the 70s and 80s, used to equate witchcraft with Satanism.
Yep.
And I argued with him a lot about that. And he did change his mind. He did. But there is a fundamental difference between black magic, Satanism, and witchcraft. Yep. Witchcraft is probably the first religion in the world. It's a nature-based religion, and it has more to do with understanding the properties of nature and your intentions in when you use leaves and herbs and animal parts, that they have power when you combine
I,
it
I've
with
I've always thought as witchcraft and witches, people who practice witchcraft and witches as supernatural guardians of this planet. You know, because the work that they do is so natural, it's so beautiful, it's so positive. You know, they're entwined with the herbs. I mean, they are truly embracing what it is to be a part of this earth. And you know, I had an epiphany. You know, going through seminary school and studying all these different religions, and there's such a negative connotation on witchcraft, but I have never found any. And even growing up as a young man, obviously, you know, I read Gerald Gardner's books. You know, I was in the phase when the whole craft came out, and I did some stuff, and there was some stuff that happened that I was like, whoa, this stuff really is real. But you know, and I think that'd be a great show. And maybe even one on Santeria. I think that'd be
I
great.
agree. That would
That would
be
be great.
excellent.
Yeah,
My
Yeah,
very,
Maybe
like
a good
that
for the
very
Spanish. Yeah.
yeah,
my very
yeah.
first case in the paranormal, in my paranormal career, if you want to call it that, involved Santeria. We were asked to investigate a house where they were going to do renovations to it. And they started tearing apart the walls. They were full of bones, cut bones, animal bones, and there was a
Yeah.
lot of Santeria stuff involved and blah blah blah. Isn't there kind of like two versions of that? Like one is definitely dark, and one is not dark.
Any
My
religion can
grandmother,
be used for dark purposes, any religion, including Christianity. You know,
yeah,
more
look at
people
the
have been killed in the
Crusades.
name of Jesus Christ than any other cause
Exactly.
in the history of the world.
Exactly, exactly. I was going to say, look at Christianity. Yeah, and even Santeria. My grandmother was a high priestess practitioner of Santeria from Puerto Rico, but she would always do the darker side of things, and I noticed that. You know, I noticed the darker candles, the darker rituals. You know, I've noticed. You know, there were times as a young child that I've seen her levitate. I've seen negative things come true because of the magic that she did. And I think ultimately that's the reason why she died at such a young age. She died at 55 and she ended up getting a really bad illness that the doctors didn't know. And I think it's because all of that negative energy. My grandmother from my mother's side was a very dark, negative witch, Santeria practitioner. Really, really dark. A lot of bad intentions. She used her gifts and her abilities to harm other people. And so I do think that the world reciprocated, you know, and it came back to her.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry. I was out for a second. So, okay, I'm going to butcher this name. I do every time I try and say it. I'm just going to say K Traveler, and I don't mean any disrespect, but
Kalunya Howie.
okay, you
Kaluuya.
say it. Thank you. She's actually going to be on. We're doing our Patreon show on Sunday. It's like an open forum roundtable discussion. She's going to be on with us if she can make it. She said she was interested in talking about things on Sunday, so maybe we'll delve into that a little bit. But one thing I've seen,
She's
too,
a Native American healer.
yeah, I met her. She's good people. I liked her.
Yeah.
She's great. We met her in Virginia. She's
Yeah,
a wonderful
right.
individual.
Yep.
As a matter of fact, she helped. She was the one channeling the young lady, the young woman who was stuck at the Beacon Theater because you know all of the atrocities that were committed to the women there. She was afraid to cross over because she was afraid of going to hell. So through Kalanyuawi, I was able to pray for the young woman. I gave her last rites. I gave her mass, and she crossed over into the white light.
Yeah, I had a similar experience with her when I was going up against that evil doctor.
Yep.
It was wonderful, actually. She's amazing.
Yep.
And by the way, Claudia is asking, what does the flag next to my comment mean? Have I been flagged? I really don't know what it means. Maybe it means you're a #1 fan.
It could be
Maybe.
top contributor party time.
Wait, you haven't said anything bad that I can find, so I'm certain
No.
you haven't been flagged for any bad reason.
Yep. So, okay, this is something else I've experienced in interviewing clients and things like that, is that there are a lot of people that are into witchcraft that don't know what they're doing. You know, I want to call them, I guess, Google witches.
It's a fad for them.
So is that another dangerous thing? And let's say, you know, somebody decides they're going to find a spell online and perform it, and does that open you up to bringing out something bad? And what do you do if you've already done that?
My grandparents had a case Well, many cases, but this one was the parents didn't believe in this stuff, but their teenage daughter was really into it. So they bought her a spell book, and she wanted to try the spells that she was able to try. And she ended up inviting something into the house that caused a great deal of terror for the children. The parents never saw anything, but they, whenever the children were alone, these things would come out and scream and yell and terrify them and, chase them into the streets. So, yeah, you can absolutely cause harm to yourself. Teenagers, especially, I think, are susceptible. Number one, children are very open to the paranormal, but once you hit those teenage years and your hormones are raging, everything is brand new to you. Everything is more vivid, more powerful for you. Your first love, your first fight, your first breakup, all of that is so big. And that means that you're far more open to those energies. You're far more capable of manifesting greater energies. So it's something to be extremely careful of.
Yeah, Stephanie, I think this is more like in your wheelhouse, correct? I mean,
Well,
what didn't you say, we were talking earlier, like I said, about witchcraft and things like that. So what advice would you give to somebody that did a spell and screwed up and brought something out that they didn't want to because they don't know what they're doing?
Oh, I mean, you have to treat it like another case, really. There's no other way of, unless you're a witch, you can remove a curse of some sort. I don't do that, but I would just treat it like any other case. I would start by investigating, talking to the client, anyone else who's witnessed, and just go from there. There's not much else you can do.
Yeah. Layla, have you experienced that at all, or?
I have. I'm, kind of with Kenneth. We grew up in the craft thing, and that was the cool thing. Had a spell book, and I mean, I can't remember the name of the book my friend had, and I had it for a little bit, and I was like walking from, my house to my friend's house, and it was like a shadow was following me through the trees, and I brought it up to my friend, and she goes, "Yeah, that happened to me. That's why I gave you the book because I didn't want the book anymore."
Yeah.
And for me, it was as simple as getting rid of the book. I was a kid. I was like 14 years old. I didn't know better. And it was just a simple fact of getting rid of that and, closing myself off to it. But, it could have been worse.
Yeah.
Tammy's got an interesting question here because we've all dealt with Ouija board cases. People have conjured up stuff that they shouldn't have. What is the proper way to get rid of them?
Do not burn it. Please do not burn it.
So what would you suggest, Chris, instead?
Yeah, exactly. So what do you do instead?
Take it far away from. This is true for any item that you think may be causing you harm. Anything that may be a portal, like a mirror or an object you bought at an antique store, and now things are happening in your home. Take it far from any house, off of your property, off of anyone's property. Take it to the woods somewhere. Dig a hole a foot deep. Put it in there, consecrate the ground with blessed salt or holy water, and then cover it up, bless it again, leave it there, never come back. Then those energies will be leached out into the earth and they will not be able to harm anyone.
Yeah.
So
What if
Adrian said
putting it in running water? I've always heard if you put it in running water.
Yeah, my grandparents said no, and I agree with them. There's an old wives' tale about spirits not being able to cross running water and things like that as well. It's simply not true.
I wanted to put that out there because I know that's another big thing as well.
Yeah.
There's a comment from Adrian. It says, if you want to try, give it away. The other party must accept it. I will tell you this, Adrian, that is not a wise thing to do. If you're talking about the Ouija board or a cursed object, you don't want to pass that on to anyone else. There is this whole thing, that, the Warrens definitely led a wonderful legacy, and we know about their museum. But I think because of that as well, people think that it's cool to have all of these haunted items and objects. I would not do that. I would not advise giving it to another person. It's like, why would you, if that person's having a bad time, ethically, morally, why would you want to give that to another person? I don't think that's right. That's just my opinion, and I'm not judging you, but I think ethically that wouldn't be wise.
I
Yeah, it's
agree
almost like
100%.
selling.
You can give
Burning
it
or
to us.
destroying objects, people are asking questions about this. Burning and destroying objects releases the energy. It doesn't destroy it. You can't destroy energy. That's one of the laws of thermodynamics. You can only transform energy. So you don't want to burn it. I've heard enough stories of people throwing away or burning their Ouija board and having it show up again. So don't.
And if you have a haunted item or a cursed object that you believe to be haunted or cursed, contact us. We can take care of it. We can dispose of it. We have the proper resources to put it in a safe place or properly dispose of it.
Or you can do what cool people do and put it up on Facebook
eBay.
Marketplace and sell it.
Or eBay, yeah. Oh, God.
Yeah.
I do know that's something that's always bothered me is that people selling haunted objects. First, I want to say I think it's a scam. Like, I mean,
Of course it is.
I know there's a website that's around me that how do you come up with about 10 haunted dolls a week? Like, I mean, come on.
That's
I
a
mean,
good
You're selling the sizzle is what a good salesman says. You don't
And if
sell the
it's-
product, you sell the sizzle. So you're
If
selling
it's-
the story.
If it's demonic, it's worth double what a regular item is. Like, it's
Yeah.
just stupid to me. So, I mean, yeah, these people that sell all this haunted stuff, like it drives me nuts. But that being said, are there any Ouija boards in the Warren Museum?
Yes.
Like a lot, a couple.
Off the top of my head, at least 3 or 4. Yeah.
Okay, cool, good. I'm
I
safe.
think the whole purpose of the
over
museum
here.
shows you not to destroy the objects. That's why those objects
That's
are at the
right.
museum and protected.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I have to take issue with calling it a museum. Yes, my grandparents called it a museum, but it was never open to the public, and it was always by invitation only.
Yep.
I think that's the worst part of their legacy is that now people think it's cool to collect objects. And as Klunya Howie is saying here, putting objects into the earth without a ritual of protection is not a good idea either, which is why I said how to do it.
Yeah, that's I agree because I've seen people that they collect all these haunted objects. They do investigations in their home with their children on these objects and think it's cool. It's like I personally don't. Your grandparents had a separate space for all that stuff. How did they keep that juju from coming into their house? I mean, could they?
On occasion, things did get hairy in their house. That's true.
Right.
And my grandfather, in the summer, he would often sleep in the museum with those objects because the room was always cold. It didn't matter how hot it was outside.
Right.
It's cold in the museum. But yeah, they have rituals of protection. They have prayers. They had priests come in on a regular basis to say prayers. I have to admit that now the Catholic Church is not happy about it and doesn't want priests coming in there because, it's become a public attraction and they don't want to be associated with that.
I think that's another good point to make too, though. That's another good rule is to not use your equipment in your home. That's your safe space. That's where you're supposed to be. I mean, that's kind of common sense to us, but don't investigate in your own house.
Yep.
Just don't do it.
Yeah, my grandparents had trouble with Annabelle for years until they learned how to lock down the energies. And that was by making the box and surrounding it with with blessed salt and holy objects so that they could contain the energies and make sure that nobody could touch the dolls so that their energies weren't mingling with the dolls' energies.
But that's something they have to continually do, right? It's just not a one-time thing and it's done.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I hope they're still doing it now. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, we can hope.
And that's one thing that I've decided to do. So right before Christmas, I decided that we have activity at our house. I think probably most of us do at some point.
Mhm.
As a training tool, I filled out one of our request for help forms just to see, how our team does, and in things like that. And so they've got me keeping a log, which is great. But it is something that, like, you do have to, like your grandparents had to do. You have to keep your place safe, because
Yeah.
it's going to happen at some point or another if you do this stuff, that something is going to, come into your house, and maybe multiple things. Like, my personal experience is that we'll have things happen for 2, 3, 4 weeks, and then it goes away for 3, 4 months.
Yeah.
Then 2, 3, 4 weeks, it comes back again, and it's, like I said, it could be the Ouija boards that are sitting on the shelf. I don't know. Maybe they wake up every so often, but we've taken those away from clients and things like that.
Or it could just be the everyday energy,
Yeah,
going outside and exposing yourself to the public. You have the spiritual attachments that can follow you home.
yeah,
So it's not necessarily just, from a certain case or a certain item. It can just be everyday outside energy that's attracted or that's attached to you and that's following you home.
Also, you've opened yourself up to the spirits working, doing what you do. So you're bound to pick up on a lot more. You're more sensitive to them now.
yeah.
You're going to
Excuse
notice
me.
more.
I just have to ask a question. Can everybody see me? Because my fiance is telling me that my camera's off.
Well,
Now
I can
We
see
can
you.
see you. We can see
Right.
you.
Like I told you.
Do we have?
Yeah.
Let's go to the comments for a section. I just want to say, if anybody has a question, go ahead and ask it in there. Especially if you maybe messed up already, you did something you shouldn't have. And we don't judge people, but if you need some help.
Oh, and I want to make something clear here. It's okay to screw up as long
Oh,
as
yeah.
you don't get stuck in your head about it. It's just a matter of going back and working on it again.
I mean, I think you've heard every one of us has, talked about something we've done in the past. It's,
Oh, yeah.
it's you got to learn from it and
Yeah.
move on. That's
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely messed up several times, and it's a learning process. There's times where I've done things wrong, where I missed a step, and I tell Chris, "Hey, no, you know what?" He goes, "No, you messed up. This is what you should be doing." And you correct what you do, but you don't dwell on it. Just don't dwell on it. You learn from your mistakes, and you move on.
The first time I ever had.
has said that there are spirits making guns appear in her photos. I would suggest, Allison, that you contact us privately, and we'll look at these and see what we can figure out with you. It's not something we could possibly give an answer to because we haven't seen them.
Yeah, go to the Warren Legacy Foundation for Paranormal Research and hit us up on our Facebook Messenger, and then we'll hook you up with the links to get help and the people to talk to. One thing, so a couple years ago, I had Joe Frankie on my show, and I was definitely a very virgin member in the foundation, and I kept talking about how I wanted to get scratched or pushed, and he's like, "Jeff, you don't want that." I'm like, so, and you know what? After experiencing more cases and things like that through the foundation, he's absolutely right, because I was kind of a gutsy, like it you have to prove it to me for me to believe it, and so I've never been pushed, so therefore, did you really get pushed? I always have those questions, and Joe is like, you don't want to wish that upon yourself, and that's and I don't anymore, because he's right. You don't want to. I've seen enough now that, like, okay, I believe it. You know what I mean? I don't. And I think a lot of people want to have that experience too, and maybe that opens things up.
Oh, it certainly does.
Yeah.
I've had so many experiences where things have happened, whether it be the car not starting, the car brakes going out right after I broke a curse. I mean, immediately after. As soon as I got on the highway, the brakes went. Or the gas turning on my stove 3 nights in a row without the flame, so that the house filled up with gas, or being thrown across a room, or stabbed, or burned. These are, who in their right mind wants these things to happen to them?
Yeah. I mean, even the case that we had, that we realized after we were done talking with the client, we were each experiencing, and nothing horrible, but just a bad luck. but it would be like 2-3 things all at once. And then when we all started talking, we realized it would be after, dealing with this particular client. So it's not necessarily horrible pushing, scratching, but it's, stuff like that too. You have to watch out for.
Well, no, and not only that though, sometimes you experience irritation. I was getting to a point where I was getting really, really upset, and
Yeah.
I actually lost my bearing, not with the client, but I was at home and I got off, and the client had said something negative, and I was upset. I ripped off my collar, and I was like, "Screw this," There's been times too, even doing intake client interviews, where after those interviews, I'm really sick, I'm really nauseous, I'm vomiting, I don't feel right, I'm lightheaded. Definitely when Chris and I did that case a few years ago, that possession case, for that whole week, I was just out of commission. I couldn't talk. I was tired. I just couldn't do it. So you don't definitely want to feel those attacks because it's not
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, I felt the same thing. I was getting irritated with my daughter, and as it was happening, I kind of realized, wait, this isn't me. I'm not mad.
Yeah.
You have to step back and realize, okay, you got to be self-aware.
Yeah. I used to get major things happening. Over the years, it has died down a lot. Now, fine. I was in New Zealand a couple of months ago, and I came home from doing a lecture where there was a haunting going on, and the door to my bedroom kept vibrating for about 5 minutes until I said, "All right, cut it out now. I'm not interested." It immediately stopped. If you're not afraid, in Costa Rica, I had it happen like 3 times. TV turns on, playing music. I'm like, all right, cut it out. Just stop. And in that particular case, it was actually a woman who had died who was trying to give a message to her daughter. And I did help with that. But when you don't get frightened, when you don't get overwhelmed by what's confronting you, then you can set some very strong psychic boundaries, and they have no choice but to respect those.
I've had that happen. I've been sleeping at night, and I have dogs. They're very sensitive, and I can just tell they're being messed with. And just like you said, I've woken up. I'm like, stop it. Just leave them alone. We're trying to sleep. Instantly stops. Everything's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that happens here too. Sometimes I'm in bed with my wife, and then my dog, he gets on alert and he starts growling out the hallway, and we're like, "No, you're not welcomed here." And it's funny because even then, throughout that week, there could be like weeks where we're not working on a case. But I do believe, because of the work that we do, these energies want to let us know that they're still around, and that the work that we do is important and significant enough to where they still want to show themselves.
Yeah. But Aurora makes a good point here. She says out loud, no spirits are allowed to follow any of us home. That's important. That really does help.
Yeah. And the problem is, when people are doing investigations, sometimes, they're there all night and they're tired when they're going home, and they just don't think about it. And that's when you got to be super careful of what you're doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We work late nights sometimes.
Yeah.
We can get exhausted.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm up to 2 a.m. for chaplaincy calls or emergency calls for the foundation. There's been times when like Layla, Jeff, Stephanie, and I, we get on the call at 11 o'clock at night for a client who's in desperate need and they can't sleep, and we're there consoling them. And, it turns out that the activity that they're having is kind of rampant, and you can notice it in the background, but that's what we do. But we have to maintain our bearings, and we have to ground ourselves and protect ourselves at all times.
Absolutely. Hey guys, I apologize, but I am going to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning. On my way to Columbia with my lady. We're going to be there 3 to 6 months, working on permanent residency there. It's my favorite place to live. I feel like I'm going home, to be quite honest.
Good.
And very soon I'll be setting a wedding date, and hopefully many of you can come join us down there. I would love to have you.
Yes. Safe travels, and hopefully we can all see you down there. That would be amazing.
Yeah. Safe travels, brother.
And everyone joining us tonight, thank you. God bless you. I'm going to go off, but everyone else, you go right ahead and continue. I apologize, but now at least some of you will get a chance to talk.
All right, good night, Chris.
Have a good night, Alex.
Good night, Chris.
Have a good night, Chris.
Yeah, we'll wrap this up soon, but I there's there is a thing, you know, like a lot of people. So ghost hunts are very popular. You know, like there's, you know, these they open these places up to the public and people that are curious. We did an event in Waterville, which is by where I live, where I think they filled out 65 people a night for 4 weeks in a row for a haunted tour.
Mm.
And I feel like a lot of people, you know, are curious about it and they want to go on these things and they could potentially screw up and bring something home.
I agree.
What do you guys think about, you know, these haunted tours and things like that?
I mean, I have my personal opinions on these haunted tours. I do think that if you are going to go out and do a haunted tour, above all, always protect yourself and ground yourself. And if you're going to be there, make sure that you do it with respect. And if you're using equipment, don't taunt any of the spirits. But my first point of advice would be don't do it. I mean, if that's what you want to do, if you're into the haunted tours and that's a hobby that you enjoy doing, just be safe about it. That's all that we really ask is be safe about it. Be cognizant of what you're doing and what you're interacting with.
How, so what, I'll ask all of you the same question. So let's say, you know, like I'm a guy that like, okay, I see this haunted tour is coming up. You know, I'm a big fan of the ghost shows. You know, they don't go into protection on the ghost shows really. Um, so what advice would you give to them to keep them safe? And I'll start with Layla.
I mean, and I'll be honest. Before I joined this foundation, I did tours out at a place here in Denton, and but we were really respectful. We always did protection prayers. One of the rules was we didn't let anyone leave unless we did a protection prayer. And like we said, it wasn't your belief, wasn't God, whatever you believe in. We were going to have a protection prayer before you left. But I've been on some tours, and a lot of them are just more history, and they're not going to be real in depth. They're not a lot of investigations, but just be careful, protect yourself. Like Father Kenneth said, when you get there, just make sure your intentions are good and you're not out there to provoke or do anything crazy, but just be respectful and always, always, always protect yourself.
I think that's a big factor too, is how you respect the spirits. You know, you personally, if you go out there with the Zach Baggins, do you want to push me?
Absolutely.
Like you're opening yourself up for bad stuff.
One of the things I've always said too is, be careful when you're out there, because when you're just saying, hey, is anything out there? Then you're opening yourself to everything out there.
Yep.
And that's, something you got to think about.
Stephanie, what's your experience with like haunted tours, and what's your thoughts on what advice would you give to someone that like wants to do one because they're curious? I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Like, what advice would you give somebody that wants to do one?
I mean, I love going to old buildings and exploring. I'm always cautious. On me, I've got myself protected in the white light. I'm always careful about what I do, because I do believe that most of them do well. There are lots of negative entities out there, but I respect to all spirits that they deserve it too, and it goes in my favor. I don't get attacked often. I get responses because I show them the respect they need. I used to investigate with a team that wasn't so respectful, and the lead investigator used to be so disrespectful. Still didn't get anything out of it, and there was just no point. But I mean, that's when I had to walk away, because it's a big deal to me to show respect to spirits, and they will, for the most part, respect you back.
Yeah. Well, I live about an hour away from the Winchester Mystery House, and I've gone there several times with my wife, and we've gone to the tours. And I don't go looking for spirits. I've asked questions to the tour guides. Have you experienced this and that? They go, yeah. But when we go, we go for the history. We go for it. And there's been a couple of times where I've noticed or I've seen a spirit, or I've heard footsteps, but I just pay no mind to it. And there was a question that asked, are priests allowed to be married now? Laura Ann. So, Laura Ann, just a quick clarification. I am part of the independent Catholic movement. So we are recognized by the Vatican, but we do not work under the Vatican. So our priests are allowed to be married, just like Orthodoxy. Orthodoxy is accepted by the Vatican, but their priests are also allowed to be married, if that makes any sense.
And
Thank you.
when we were doing tours, we always kind of liken, you're going to these, they're humans before, that's who they are, most of the spirits. And it's like you're going into someone's home. You wouldn't just burst into someone's home and start demanding, do this, answer this, do that. You have to be respectful. They're human spirits. They're human just like we were.
Yep.
But I think anywhere you go, I'm sorry, I was going to say, but I think anywhere you go, you still have to protect, even if it's to the grocery store. I mean, there's been times when I've gone to the grocery store and I'm just shopping and I feel something really heavy. And I'm like, oh, I don't like this. You know what I mean? So it can happen anywhere, not just a haunted location.
Dude, I've literally like left a cart full of groceries in an aisle before. Like we got one store by us. I don't know what the hell it is, but sometimes I just get agitated. I've left carts there multiple times and walked out. Like,
you know what's agitating for me?
I can't deal with
my wife and I, Costco is agitating, which is why we only go certain hours. Costco. That's why we go to Sam's Club, because Costco, the energy in there is so heavy. It is so thick that as soon as you walk in, you're just inundated with all these different energies. And there's been times when my wife and I were like, you know what? We've actually left carts there. Like, we'll come back another time. Yep. Because, and my wife does not like any of the stuff that I do. She does not like the work that I do. She respects it, but she also has abilities and she can sense things. Even when we talk about things like that, or we'll watch a show, she'll get like scratch marks. She doesn't like it, but she's cognizant of the energy around us. And I think all of us should be cognizant of anywhere we go, even if it's to the grocery store, to the gas station. There's a potential that something can attach to us or affect us.
Yeah. I mean, I know you guys know that I work for a court system, and in the courtroom with some bad cases, I'm telling you, I feel that. I mean, I will be in there just drained. So, I have to make sure and that's my work, that I'm protected and taking care of myself.
Yep. So Stephanie, you're a sensitive or a medium, correct?
I have psychic abilities. I've here.
Because my wife is, like working on developing hers. We have problems like if we go to a bar. Do you experience the same thing?
I mean, I have problems in a crowded room anywhere. Just picking up everybody's energy. I'm really empathic. I get anxious, and I feel everything. So it can be tough.
It seems like bars just have bad garbage energy.
I mean, alcohol, I think, is negativity, and people get rowdy,
Yeah.
And the alcohol is lowering their inhibitions,
Yeah.
And alcohol it is a depressant. Alcohol is a depressant. That's the thing we have to realize. Alcohol is a depressant. So, people's boundaries, people's spirits and guards are going down. So whatever they're feeling, it's going to intensify times 10. And so, you can definitely feel those vibrations that they're pushing out.
Yeah.
But it's important, listen to your intuition. Just like you said, you're at the grocery store. If there's something, just listen, man. There's something there telling you there's something not right here. Listen to it. You're getting that for a reason.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask the panel this. Have you guys ever gone to a location? For example, there's been times where I'm just going to go to the grocery store, and then I drive by and I don't find the parking, but then I get this overwhelming feeling. I go, you know what? Something about it. It's not good. So I go home. And then 10 minutes later, come to find out there was a shooting at the same place that I was supposed to go, at the same parking spot. Has any of that ever happened to you?
Not that dramatic, but I've had stuff like that before. Yeah.
I've had things where like this actually happened, I think 3-4 years ago. I got a flat tire in my driveway. I was pissed off, but there was an accident on the route that I was going to take to work at the time that I would have been going that route had I not had that flat tire. So
I've had stuff like that happen.
Yeah, I think God poked my tire that way.
I'm a big believer in angels, and I think we all have our little angels, and just like you said, you don't see it at the time, but it's for a reason.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I definitely believe in the power of angels. I mean, I actually do angelic healing. On my side business, I call in the archangels, and I do angelic healing with bells and a sword. And that's what I call therapy. We call it terapia. So it's therapy. I do spiritual therapy with angels on the side.
Let's try and wrap this up.
How did I not know that?
Yeah.
I didn't know that either.
It's on my website. It's very private on my website. I'm Father Ken Doctor, but I do angelic healing. And so I work with another priest who travels the world, Father Camillo. And so he taught me some of the things because he is a Vatican trained priest as well, and an exorcist. And so through the angelic healing, what we do is we try to cut through those negative vibrations, those spiritual attachments. Then we do that. And so I do that. And that's actually helped out many clients because it's helped them to not go into a full possession mode, so to speak. But yeah, angelic healing. I believe in angels.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep. Let's try and wrap this up. It's been hour and 15 now. Does anybody have any final thoughts, advice, or anything like that to people that have messed up?
I mean, do
If you
what
mess
you
up,
can, but
yeah.
and if what you do doesn't work, reach out to someone. I would love for you to reach out to us, but someone you trust. If you you can't do it by yourself, get help.
Yeah. If you mess up, it's okay. Don't dwell on it. Just reach out to someone. We all make mistakes. We're humans. The whole intention is you can mess up even trying to do good, but that's the most important thing is your intent. Your intent was good, but you made a mistake. It's okay. It's not a problem. Now, if you had negative intentions and you messed up, we're still not going to judge you. We're just going to say, don't do it. And Jeff, your door just opened up behind you.
That's Dana.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
You should have made a cool story.
No, that's actually no, it's not Dana. That's a demon, I think. Just kidding.
Our director Cleo has something beautiful. She just said, "There are very few mistakes which can't be fixed."
I'm a demon.
Yes.
No. Now I'm in trouble. Dana thinks I called her. No, I said it was you first. And then I changed it to make the story more interesting.
Oh, the door.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep. We were talking to Joe one night. We actually had him on our show. Or no, it was it was on our show. And
His ghost.
his little ghost in the background just went flying.
And
It was
nobody
weird.
noticed it right away.
Yep. That was cool. So
Well, just like Stephanie Treadway, we
Yeah.
were doing an interview a
Yeah.
few weeks ago, and the refrigerator door just opened by itself.
Yeah.
Yep.
In front of the camera. We're like, "Are your kids hungry?" And they're like, "No, my kids are at school."
They're like, there's nobody there. Again, what we do, bring stuff in.
Yeah.
Stephanie, what's your closing final thoughts? Your good advice to people that have maybe messed up or prevent them from messing up?
We all dabble in things we shouldn't. It's just how you handle it. Contact someone who knows what they're doing, and don't make the situation worse.
I think for me personally, I think one of the big lessons that can be learned tonight is that if you do want to dabble in ghost hunting or paranormal investigation, I mean, you need to take it serious. You need to protect yourself, but also, go with a good intent and treat the spirits with respect. I mean, I think that's probably a good way to keep yourself safe.
100%.
Yep.
Would you say, Stephanie?
Or just
Yeah, I just said don't go alone. You should always have.
Oh, for sure.
or just don't do it to avoid problems. Just don't.
Yeah.
Well, they're
People,
going to do
I mean,
it, which is fine,
yeah.
but just protect
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. And don't watch the TV shows and think that that's the ghost hunting 101 role model that you need to follow.
People don't have test every day.
And that being said, I do love a lot of those ghost shows. Like I mean, but I take them for what they are. They're entertainment.
I can't watch them any. I just can't bring myself to watch them. I just can't.
Me either, Layla.
Well, same here. Like recently, I just binged watched Destination Fear, and I thought the locations were cool, and I thought some of the evidence was cool. But I was saying to myself, "Oh Lord, what are these kids doing?" You know what I mean? It's like I would not do that, but it's all entertainment.
Yeah,
you definitely don't want to learn from that.
Well, he's a film student, so and Zach Baggins was too. So I mean, they were all about film first. So
exactly.
They created a lot of good shows with a lot of money and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about 28 Days? It was on Netflix.
Didn't watch it.
Didn't watch it.
I couldn't get past the first episode, but I will tell you this: I do have certain thoughts, but the Cajun demonologist was kind enough to refer a case to us, We did receive a message in our foundation messenger, I think, that the Cajun demonologist referred a case to us, which is good.
Jeremy, yeah.
And I'll leave it at that.
Yep. I thought
He's
it was
a
a
good guy.
decent show, but I don't think that the premise was true. I don't think that was a Warren theory. You know.
Yeah, I don't think so
No,
either.
it wasn't. Talking to
Nothing.
Joe Frankie worked with the Warrens for over 35 years,
Yeah.
and throughout his lectures, he's never heard anything like that. There's a good show on there on Netflix called My Encounter with Evil. It's actually in Spanish, but it's based upon the Latin American countries. That's a really good show. But I will advise the public, these are true cases of paranormal demonic possession.
Right.
And what's important about this show, what you can gain out of it, is the mistakes and the things that people have gone through and the attacks that they've suffered, messing with the occult, looking for answers and instant gratification. So it's a really good show, but it's powerful. So if you're going to watch it, just make sure that you say a blessing or protection, because it is a strong show.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up. Does anybody else have anything they want to say that we skipped, that we glossed over, that we, you know?
I don't.
Like they say in boxing, protect yourself at all times.
There we go.
All right, people. Well, if anybody, I'm sorry, Stephanie.
Oh no, I just said stay.
Yes. And if you do have issues, visit our website, warrenlegacy.com, and fill out our request for help form. Like I said, we've said it 1,000 times tonight. We don't judge anybody. If you think that, I'm too bad to get help, that's absolute BS. There's nothing you've done too bad to get help. We've seen it all, blah, blah, blah. So
a lot of people
I do have
that we
go ahead,
won't
Stephanie.
believe, and we do believe you because we've been through a lot of it.
Yep.
And I do want to say something. I kind of want to make this interactive before we head off. For anyone who is listening tonight and anyone who's in the chat, please send us messages on your protection methods. We would love to know how everyone else protects themselves, because we do things a certain way, but we would love to know how the rest of our audience protects themselves. So I implore you to do that. That is the challenge. Everyone, inundate our messages, our message box with the ways you protect yourself, and that way we can probably incorporate that in our future investigations as well.
Yeah, like we said, we're always learning. We're always open to learn. We're not perfect. We still make mistakes. Learn from them.
Yeah.
Nobody really knows.
Yeah. There's no experts out there. You know what I mean? I think combined collectively, we have a vast amount of knowledge, but an expert has to know psychology, quantum physics. And it's a lifetime of learning. And I don't think we'll be able to attain that enlightenment of paranormal knowledge within our lifespan.
Yeah. Most of what I believed 5 years ago, I don't believe anymore, because of what I've learned and meeting all of you people, and I've learned a lot by being in the foundation.
I have too.
Yeah, I mean tons. Like I thought I had it going on, and then I joined you guys. Like, shit, I'm an idiot.
I don't think I've ever gotten off any kind of meeting with anyone from the foundation without learning something new, and I love it. But that's how it should be. Keep yourself open to that.
For me, is like let's go ahead and debunk the paranormal. It's better of its psychological effect and its supernatural effect, and that's what we're mostly looking for. You don't want to deal with the paranormal, because at least if we can find out that you're dealing with a psychological illness, that's going to save you in the long run, because you're going to go with something that's untreated that could potentially devastate you and give you a chemical imbalance and can cause you into more psychosis. So for us, it's better to be natural than supernatural.
Yeah.
All right, I think we should end on that note.
All right.
So we will join us all in 2 weeks. I think we're going to go with that witchcraft topic and get rid of some of the bugaboos about witches.
Yes, hopefully we get someone from New Zealand. If you're listening.
I'm sure.
Someone from New Zealand.
Yes.
So, all right. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you.